Hello, I am Angelo Rosado. I'm going to show you how to make a tabletop for my desk. Here is a picture of the tabletop finished. For any project, you need a base material. For this project, I'm using scrap wood that I found from a demolition project dumpster about a block from my house. For the material used, I used 3x8 Douglas fir timber, which was previously used as floor joist in a house. Here I am in my basement cutting the wood to around 50 inches just to make handling the wood during the project easier. After cutting the pieces down to manageable sizes, I brought them to my construction site where I have real power tools. I used a table saw to cut down each piece of wood so that the table is the right dimension. Also, I cut the inside of each piece of wood to make a clean surface to create a good mating surface for the wood and glue. You can see how clean the wood is once you shave off a little bit of that brown dirty layer. You can also see the middle piece. I had to shave down not the side but also the bottom to make sure all the pieces are perfectly flat to make a good tabletop surface. Now that I've ripped each piece of timber down to the correct width, it is now time to cut the lengths. Here I'm using a miter saw to cut each length of timber. For this table, I'm pretty much playing it by ear. I'm making the table around 50 inches long, and there's not really any exact measurements. I just have to make sure each piece of wood is exactly the same. You can see in this time lapse that instead of measuring each piece of wood, I measure the first piece of wood, and then I trace that first cut piece of wood on every other piece of wood to make sure they're all the same. Now that I cut each piece of wood to length, it is time to cut the end caps. The end caps are basically two thin pieces of wood that just cap the ends and hide the end grain. Here I'm using the miter saw, and you can watch the video. I'm just making a cut. I'm laying the end cap on top, and you can see the other side is long. I'm grabbing my pencil, and then I'm scribing the piece of wood to the tabletop. That way I know that this end piece will be perfectly flat and square and level with the tabletop. Here I'm using a square to make sure the line is straight on the piece of wood. This ensures that when I make the cut, the blade is going to be square and it's going to make a square cut. Here I am, I line up the piece of wood with the machine, I bring the blade down, make sure the blade is right on that line. I'm going to cut away at the line, and here's the cut. And then I'll just bring it back over to make sure it fits. I am back in my basement with the 3 exact cut pieces of wood, and it's time to glue them together to make the tabletop. Here I'm using Titebond 3, which is a wood glue used to bond wood together. The bond of the glue is actually stronger than the wood itself. Here I am gluing the pieces of wood together. I am basically laying the glue on, and then I'm brushing it around to make sure it is coated evenly. Once you apply glue to each mating surface, you grab as many clamps as you can that you have around, and you clamp the pieces of wood together. You have to do it from both sides to ensure that you have a flat surface and it does not bend. This glue will take approximately 24 hours to dry. Here's the tabletop after the glue has dried. I removed all the clamps and the tabletop is holding together very nicely. I removed all the excess glue during the drying process on the front side, but however on the back side, I did not clean the tabletop. You can see all the excess marks. I just didn't remove it because I knew I wasn't going to see it when I'm using the table. Here's a close-up to the tabletop. You can see the old growth rings on the pieces of wood. Because the rings are so close together, you can tell that this is an old growth tree, which you can't really find today because of forest depletion. Now that the tabletop is glued together, it is time to glue the end caps. You can see that there is gaps between the end cap and the pieces of wood. This is because during the gluing process, each piece of wood was not glued perfectly in line with each other. To fix this, I'm using a sander. The sander will basically grind away the wood, and I'll grind it away until it is perfectly smooth. Now that the table and end caps are flushed out, it is time to glue them in place. I'm using Titebond and I'm brushing it on just like before. Because I don't have clamps big enough to reach all the way across the desk, instead of using clamps, I'm using a brad nailer which shoots 2-inch nails into the piece of wood. This will act as a clamp and will hold the wood together as the glue dries. The nails are pretty much a temporary hold for the glue and the wood. Once the glue dries, the glue will be the primary source of structural integrity. Now the tabletop is 95% complete. Now that I have all the pieces of wood together, I'm basically going around with my sander and a piece of sander and sanding down all the rough edges and rough corners to make it smooth. I'm not taking down the whole entire tabletop because I want to keep the old character of the wood. Shortly, I'll be getting polyurethane and putting around 5 coats of paint or polyurethane on the wood. What this polyurethane does is it seals it and protects it. This will basically make the wood going from a rough feel to a smooth feel. It gives it an almost glassy look and a glassy feel. Also, with this wood, I wanted to keep it the way it was. It has holes in it, has character in it, and you can tell that it was used in an old house and it is being repurposed. Here's the finished tabletop after 5 coats of polyurethane. In between each coat, I let it dry for about 12 hours. All that's to do left is to build legs, which I'll probably make out of steel and weld together. Thank you.